I'm really quite excited about our first two speakers. We've got quite a privilege to talk to these guys, I think. So we're going to invite, once I've said a little bit about them, Nick Wright and Rob Wilmot from Crowdicity onto the stage to talk to you about what they do at Crowdicity, and they're doing some great stuff. The best way of describing them, we work with them at Catalyx. We regularly audit idea management systems for the work that we do at Catalyx to make sure that we're working with the best. And Crowdicity always come in that shortlist. They're a fantastic idea management software, hugely flexible, that you can do some really amazing stuff with, and they'll show you much more. To introduce them individually, Nick is the co-founder and currently the CPO. He's a true thought leader on crowdsourcing, innovation, and indeed social enterprise. He was a Business Insider Top 42 Under 42 and an IOD Director of the Year. And Rob Wilmot really doesn't need too much of an introduction. He's the Crowdicity CEO. He was the CTO of FreeServe. I don't remember how many of you might remember FreeServe. And was one of the youngest executives to run a FTSE 100 company at the ripe old age of 29. After an IPO worth 290 million, only 11 months after the start, that turned into a sale of 1.6 billion, Rob has gone on to build, acquire, and sell a whole number of ventures and businesses, and currently Crowdicity is the thing that he gets really excited about. He founded that with Nick in 2012. I won't say any more about them, I won't steal their thunder, but I will ask you to kindly welcome Rob and Nick onto the stage to say a little bit more.
Cheers. Thank you, Guy, for that introduction. Nick and I are going to do this sort of presentation together. I'm going to do the first bit. Nick's going to do all the great case studies, and then I'm going to sum up at the end. But I learned something from Steve Jobs, not personally, I didn't know him, but I learned something important, that you should always start with setting out the problem and how you look to solve it. This is a slow changer. Okay. So at Crowdicity, we believe that in every company or organization, there are ideas, potentially brilliant ideas, or the spark of them that never see the light of day. And at Crowdicity, we build the software that ignites that potential and lets it shine. It's really as simple as that. And I'm delighted to see some of our customers and partners in the room. I'm sure they might, they're going to tell you about how they do what they do with Crowdicity, but I'll move on from there. So I also like to enhance the problem. I nicked this from a really good presentation that somebody did at Crowdsourcing Week in Singapore, because I thought it was so good. There's a great site called braintruck.com that's got lots of great cartoons on it. But this one struck me as a great way of explaining what the problem is. The ancient Greeks were really good at innovation and open innovation. They were really good at crowdsourcing their population through town hall meetings that they called agoras. And Nick's going to talk about those a bit later. It's relevant to a case study. But then all that was forgotten as that civilization departed the earth. And for the next 2,000 years, a feudal system kicked in where there were many leaders, kings and nobles, and then there were the serfs. And the serfs never got to have any great ideas, but the leaders and the nobles did, which meant that during those 2,000 years, only the big disruptive innovators came through. The people like Edison, the people like Caxton when he brought the printing press in. But even the big institutions railed against them. So, for instance, Galileo was vilified by the Pope, and Leonardo da Vinci was nearly put to death. So there was not really an economy of innovation. Let me show you this one. So this is relevant because my first job was in a chicken factory, dispatching chickens, which is a nice way of saying killing them. And it wasn't a great job, but I thought of it's a good first one. But it was a job, and I had some ideas about improving it, how to improve the production line. So I went to my manager, and I said, I've got some good ideas. And he said, when I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. And that always stuck in my mind until Nick and I thought about Crowdicity, which is why I'm unlocking that. So This is all the excuses you get from management. And I won't read them all out, but you can read them up there. And I'll leave them up there while I talk about the next bit in presentation. So rather than rant on about how we change that economy and how we do crowdsourcing, I've got a great video that we made for Dorset Healthcare Trust, an NHS authority in the UK, which was one of our first customers. And their challenge was to get good ideas out of their hierarchy, from porters to consultants and everywhere in between. Now, health authorities in the UK are incredibly hierarchical with tiers and layers where a porter would never dream of talking to a consultant. They're almost anonymous. But what I'm going to show you now is the video that we produced to incentivize everybody in the NHS Trust to take part in innovating and bringing their ideas to the front. And then quickly after that, I'm going to show how we demoed the software in a minute to that population to encourage them to use it and to demystify it and destigmatize it, because technology is always another thing you've got to do. So I'm going to run that now. So this video will run for about a minute and a bit.
I'm a firm believer that if you give the staff the problem to solve, they will solve it, rather than being dictated to and say, this is how you're going to do it.
It would be nice actually to have somewhere where we can actually share our ideas and converse with team members and know more and communicate with each other.
If a good idea tends to pop up on the front line, there's a long chain before it gets to somebody that can actually enforce that kind of idea. So a nice platform where they can put their ideas in would be awesome.
With us being here in Southampton, we can be quite separate to the Trust. So it would be nice to discuss with other project managers and learn from them as well.
People at all levels have good ideas, and because they might consider themselves to be, oh, I'm just a cleaner, who wants to listen to me? Because you're high up the ladder or lower down shouldn't restrict it, because once you've got good ideas and good people, we can go very far.
The only way we can really improve as a trust is to do things better every day. When you come into work every day, the best ideas come from people who work with patients the whole time, and we need to capture them.
One of the things that obviously happened just over a year ago, we formed a new organisation, and I've heard from a number of people how important it is that we develop a new culture.
Traditionally things have been very much top-down, so that staff are told what to do. A bottom-up culture encourages creativity, an atmosphere where everybody feels that their input counts.
I have a personal passion as Chief Executive of Dorset Healthcare Trust to be at the leading edge of innovation. The NHS is full of brilliant people and brilliant ideas. It's got a long track record of innovation, but often that innovation is not widespread and is slow to be adopted. Simply doing more of what we've always done is not an option. If we don't innovate and adapt, our competitors will. Everyone has a role to play in innovation, so please get involved.
Your input really counts.
Your input.
And then it runs straight into this next video, hopefully, which illustrates a platform to all of the users. Here we go. We've seen that one. Let's see another.
iMatter is where great ideas get turned into action. The whole process of innovation begins with a great idea, so let's start there. Ideas come in all shapes and sizes. It could be an answer to a challenge set by the Trust, a contribution to somebody else's idea, or an idea you've had for a long time and want to set free. You can share and grow all your ideas within iMatter, and it's really simple to get started. Sign up using your existing intranet login and fill out your profile. From there, you're all set to start sharing ideas and collaborating with the whole organisation. So what happens to those ideas within iMatter? Well, this is where collaboration comes in. iMatter is the space where people from all over the organisation can come together to share and swap ideas, insights and experience. You can vote for the ideas you like, suggest your own ways to make good ideas great, and work together to collaboratively nurture the best ideas which can then be turned into action. It's really simple to add your contribution to iMatter. So creating change and making ideas into action happens a lot quicker. iMatter is the place where your good ideas meet, where your input, big or small, can make a positive contribution to the whole organisation. So sign up today and start bringing your ideas to life.
Super fast bopper. I'm doing all your slides now, Nick. We took a punt with the NHS, and we weren't sure whether they would be a first major good customer for us, but by Paul Sly, the chief exec, getting behind the platform and setting the first challenge, which was curing the email epidemic. How can we make work smarter, not harder by email? Some magic happened, and it truly was amazing. So, a junior engineer went to a conference about Microsoft Exchange Server, which sounds really interesting. And he went to I got a laugh from Holger. I can always trust Holger to laugh at my jokes. So, but they went to the conference and they saw a really unique, nerdy way of actually making emails expire after a certain amount of time. And in the NHS, a lot of emails are time sensitive. If they're it's back again. So in the NHS, if an email isn't read within a certain amount of time, it won't get done, and it's expired in terms of the usefulness of it. So they set a toggle that allowed those emails to expire. That person put their idea in, somebody collaborated with the idea, it went to the right person in the organization, they implemented it in 22 hours from the start of the platform. That really ignited the desire to use it. And they've used it for so much since, including where they put their next cache point, how they improve the sterilization of surgical instruments, a massive array of useful opportunities. But one of the greatest things that came from the NHS was with the Heart of England Healthcare Trust, where a porter was on their system, a porter, and they're the ones who follow around these poor patients who walk around the corridor with their drip going to X-ray and see their ass hanging out the back of the gown. And this porter saw that a lot, and he went into the system and said, we should make a better gown to improve the dignity of our patients. And that stimulated a discussion. It turned out that a year before, they thought about that and parked the idea because they were so busy. It re-stimulated a discussion from all the different people involved with that. Ben DeLisi, a designer, got involved with the British Design Council, and they created a whole new gown that wrapped from the side. Really simple, based on a Japanese kimono type of gown. But that came through that platform. Amazing stuff that was there all along in the minds of porters and various other people, but came out with a collaborative platform that allowed people and empowered them to bring their ideas forward and gave them a voice. So on that point, I'll hand over to Nick, and he'll cover some more case studies.
Thank you. Am I on? No? Yes? Yes. There we go. You know this guy? It's not a presentation about business without at least one Branson quote, but we work with Virgin Australia. It's fair to say that Virgin Australia as an airline had their fair share of problems of late. But they have set ambitious targets. They've been very ambitious in terms of what they want to do over the next sort of couple of years. So they, by 2017, want to be the nation's, Australia's, favourite airline. So how are they doing that? Well, we're working with them. It is a slow clicker, isn't it? There we go. And they are looking to their employees, the people that work for them, to actually help them to get to the stage where they are the nation's favorite airline. So they have launched Crowdicity. Crowdicity platform's sort of been launched. It started at the start of the year. And we're sort of seeing organizations like Virgin who are really sort of dramatically magnifying their capabilities and their competitive advantage by tapping into the power of the crowds. And for most organizations, that starts internal. within every big organization or even small organization, you've got a crowd inbuilt. You've got the people that work for you. These are the people who, in Virgin Australia's case, are frontline. They experience the issues, the problems every single day. They know what their customers like. They know what their customers don't like. They're the first to see the problems, and they're often the first to actually see a solution to those problems. But what they often don't get is they don't get the opportunity to share those issues and to share those problems and to actually get support for them, because usually it's in isolation. So what the connection and the platform does is it allows everyone in the organization, not just the people in head office, but the people that work in the airports, the people that work in the maintenance crews, the people that work actually on the planes, to actually have a say, but to also to validate what other people are saying as well, and to actually get support and get momentum for that. So there's been a great success. I mean, it's been launched for about 3 months, but they've already introduced some pretty significant sort of projects off the back of this. They've launched a strategic partnership with a big airline, partner airline. They've started to recycle 10 tons of food from aircrafts every single month to a charity called Oz Harvest. And that's just the start. They've got a lot of big stuff planned, and it's all ground up. So the whole initiative is a ground-up initiative, and this is how they are going to turn around the fortunes of their organization. Where do I point this? Do I point it there?
You point it.
Point it, point it. Go. Maybe I'm pressing harder.
There you go.
Hey, there we go. But just as exciting, I think, is another case study and something else we're sort of working on. And it's the way that crowdsourcing and the way that technology is really helping governments of the world to actually get closer to the citizens, to actually allow citizens to actually have a say in society and what actually happens in society. Technology is becoming a great leveler in terms of actually starting to get people to actually come together collectively to influence policy and policy decisions. Hello. There we go. There's Eric. So one of the things that we're doing is we've launched a Crowdicity platform with the city of Rio. And this came off the back of some work that we were doing with the ITU. And Joe is here from the ITU, and he'll be on stage later, sort of talking about that work. Well, the mayor of Rio, Eduardo Perez, saw this work that they did and said, okay, what we need to do, we've had some issues. I don't know if you remember, they had the World Cup, and they had a lot of issues around how the World Cup was perceived within Rio in terms of understanding what the benefit and the value was of actually hosting this. Well, next year they're hosting the Olympic Games. He didn't want to repeat that situation, so he wanted to make certain that very early on they actually got the input of people. So one of the things that he wanted to do was to find out what the people of Rio wanted as the legacy from the city hosting the Olympic Games. Oh, there we go. So this is the man, this is Eduardo Perez, this is him launching the project. He's got his backing, he's got his support, and they've called it Agora Rio. So back to Rob's point about the sort of ancient Greeks. So the Agoras were where the Greeks came together as a sort of open forum to actually debate policy. Well, in the 21st century, our open forum, our debating space is the virtual world, it's the online world. So what they wanted to do was to create a public environment where policy decisions could be debated and enforced by the people. There we go. So what they want to do is, the first thing they wanted to do was the Olympic Games. And if this works, they said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to roll a new challenge out every 3 months. And the key thing really for this whole thing was that there was a process. They actually decided, very early on, to say, if this was to work, we really need to do something off the back of all this. We can't just have a great conversation. We've actually got to follow it through, because if we don't follow it through, we're going to lose credibility, everyone's going to say it's a big PR stunt, and it would just die on its feet. But there's a real opportunity here, if we get this right, to actually do something incredibly significant and meaningful. So they had a process in place where, at the end of the stages, you know, the analysis document was produced by the experts. So the experts didn't get involved until about this point. Up until this point, this is all public, this is all crowdsourced. So the crowd were actually coming up with the ideas, they were debating them, they were improving them, they were refining them, rejecting them, they were actually telling them which is the most popular, and they were then actually starting to, you know, validate the ones that actually, you know, needed to happen. And it wasn't until the sort of stage 5 or 6 that actually the experts got involved. And off the back of that, we actually got around about 26 ideas that went through to the mayor, of which 3 actually have become policy. And these are big infrastructure changes that have happened to RIA. One point just to quickly mention is the relationship between the virtual and the real world. Bring it back. There we go. So they can't exist in isolation. The virtual world and the real world have got to coexist. So the real world has an opportunity to promote the virtual world, but the virtual world has an opportunity to amplify the real world. So you can take 200 people on the ground and amplify that into 200,000. And I could see that we're running out of time.
I'm going to do a 1 minute quickly summary. So you've seen some very brief cases there, and as I said, there are some amazing partners and clients here today that will be showing how they're changing the world. And what I'd like to say is that by democratizing innovation, you can make some amazing, wonderful outputs. So everything from patient care and protecting their life, right through to improving how a city delivers public services. And at Crowdicity, we're delighted to be helping our customers to change the world one idea at a time. So thank you. And final note, if you look on the back of your pass, you can learn more about us. Thank you.
Hello. Lovely. Before you guys go, any questions from anyone? I think we've got time for a couple. Yes, perfect. Katerina, there should be a microphone just here. Anyone else while we... Okay, we've got one at the back over there as well.
So can you just give us your definition of innovation? Is it implemented ideas? Because it's a term that everyone uses and have very different meanings for it.
Yeah, it's true. I'll enunciate. I don't need a microphone. Yeah, innovation is a really kind of weird. Is a really kind of weird term. We tend to kind of, to some extent, not avoid it, but we do tend to sort of show people what innovation is by actually doing, rather than actually talking about it, because everyone's got a very different perception of innovation. Certainly when you land it into an organization and you start to talk about innovation to people that aren't actually close to the innovation process, it becomes, you kind of lose them. The actual doing of it is much more important. It's the actual sort of action of actually this process of continuous improvement, which people get. People get that. They get the fact that actually we're looking to improve what we're doing, and we're looking to do it ongoing, and we're looking to just make things better. And ultimately, it's got to be a result of the process. And people kind of understand that much better. And they see that through the work on the platform. Well,
yeah, and I get a lot of people asking, well, if we get lots of ideas, what happens if we don't implement them? Because you're not going to implement all of them. And I always say to people, as long as you give a feedback loop to your community, that not every idea will be adopted. They might be part adopted. Some will be adopted. Like with RIA, that's what we did. The mayor laid out very categorically that not every idea would be delivered, but that honesty drove engagement.
Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry. So I guess this kind of branches off of the Rio question. I'm going to try and shield this a bit from the speakers. There's the Rio event might have had a lot of backlash and negative feedback, both internally because, I mean, there was all the press about the riots and so on, but then also the global community has a very, very strong opinion. How did you deal with those two sides of the potential negative response, both internally and kind of on a global scale.
So I'll jump in on this one if you follow up on this. So they didn't just do a lip service online program. Another government might have said, let's get an online platform and do a consultation just like the UK government would do, get 23 people in and call that democracy. What they did, they created a virtuous circle of consultation, and the Agora methodology was they would set a challenge online, they'd take some of those ideas that came into the challenge and take it back to the town hall and to the local shop and to the street to talk to people and push those ideas back to get feedback on them. Then they fed that back into the platform, and they got this great virtuous circle of engaging all the population rather than just the digital elite. Because that's the criticism that governments do get, is that they only engage their digital natives and the older population doesn't get a say. So that's how we sort of got over that potential criticism with Vero, and it's worked really well because there's been a really great engagement because of that.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, excellent. I just have a quick question because in different companies you have also a lot of internal IDs, platform or whatever. And how do you make sure people are actually implementing the new ID? Because sometimes you get like pushback saying, okay, it's not in my work plan, or I don't care, or whatever. How do you clearly engage people into one innovation on IDs?
Often you get, I mean, it's fair to say in any organization, you get two levels. You get the senior team that is very, very kind of up for this. They want to do it. They want to get it in the business. And then you have the people at the coalface, as it were, who are really up for actually saying, actually, we've got a mechanism to be heard. You know, the difficult layer, I guess, and the challenging layer is the sort of layer in the middle. You know, because typically they're the ones that have to do something with the outputs of the system. And it is important that you actually, what we usually find is there's two sort of ways of sort of engaging on the system. There's ideas that come out of the collaboration process that actually don't need any kind of buy-in. They don't need budgets. They don't need anyone to take ownership of it. They're just good ideas that people can just implement. They can just sort of say, well, okay, that's really good. Or maybe we can do something on this. We'll just action it ourselves. So you empower people to take action through the platform and to just go ahead and do it. The other thing is that, you know, we find that where internal communities have the greatest success is where there's a very high level buy-in in the platform. So it's almost become woven into the whole policy of the organization in terms of this is just how we do it now. This is the process we go through in terms of evaluating and validating what we're actually going to be doing as our priority projects. And where we find that actually happens, you get an extremely high level of sort of actionable results off the back of it.
One more, if anyone's got one. No.
Thank you.
So guys, a big hand to Nick, Wright and Rob Wilmot.